The richest man who ever lived died wishing he had what you used this morning without even thinking about it. Not wishing for more gold, not wishing for more power, not wishing for a bigger army or a taller monument or another country to conquer. He was wishing for something you probably have sitting in your medicine cabinet right now. And that thought, that one C thought, completely changed the way I see my own life. I know that sounds dramatic, but stay with me for a few minutes, because by the time we get to the end of this, something is going to shift in the way you think about what you have and what you think you're missing.
The title of this video says history's richest men all died wishing they were you. And the thumbnail says he owned the world. But you own something he never could. I know that sounds impossible. I know your brain is already pushing back on it. Good. That means you're paying attention. Because what I'm about to show you is historically accurate, and it is genuinely going to mess with your head. We're going to travel through 5 eras, 5 of the most powerful, most obscenely wealthy human beings who ever lived. And I'm going to show you exactly, specifically, what each one of them could not have, what they died without, what you used or experienced today before you even finished your morning coffee.
This isn't motivation. This isn't a lecture about gratitude. This is a factual comparison that I stumbled onto a few years back when I was in a genuinely bad headspace about money and success. And it hit me so hard that I had to make this video. Let's go. Egypt, 1279 BC. Pharaoh Ramesses II. When you picture ultimate power, this is the man. He ruled Egypt for 66 years. 66! He commanded an empire that stretched from what is now Sudan all the way up through Syria. He had hundreds of wives, thousands of servants, and more gold stockpiled than most modern countries hold in their reserves today. He commissioned monuments so massive, Abu Simbel, the Ramesseum, that they are still physically standing thousands of years after every single person who built them turned to dust. By any measure you want to use, this man had everything. And at night, lying in his palace, surrounded by everything humanity could offer, he could not sleep. Not because of nightmares, not because of politics, because his teeth were eating him alive from the inside. Here is something that almost never makes it into the history books. Egyptian flour, even the flour made specifically for royalty, was ground using stone mills. And those stone mills, no matter how carefully they were operated, shed microscopic grit and sand particles into every single batch, into every loaf of bread, every meal, every single day of your entire life. Rich or poor, pharaoh or slave, everyone ate the same gritty bread because there was no other option. No alternative process existed. By the time Ramses reached his 40s, his teeth were ground down to raw, exposed nerve endings. Archaeologists who examined his actual mummy found severe dental abscesses, infections that had eaten so deeply they had bored through his jawbone itself. The most powerful human being alive was in constant, chronic, completely untreatable pain. His physicians, and he had the best physicians Egypt could produce, had herbal pastes and ritual prayers. That was it. That was the ceiling. That was everything money and power could purchase. Now, I want you to think about the last time you had a toothache. Really think about it. That deep throbbing, that pressure behind your eye, that moment where you would genuinely do anything to make it stop. You picked up your phone, you called a dentist. Within 48 hours, someone sat you in a chair, numbed your entire jaw so completely you couldn't feel a thing, and fixed the problem. Maybe you took 3 ibuprofen in the meantime and felt well enough to go to work the same day. Ramesses had an empire. He had gold beyond counting. He had armies that terrified the known world. He did not have ibuprofen. He did not have a dentist. He had a jawbone that was quietly rotting,
while he sat on the most expensive throne ever constructed.
But the teeth were not even the worst part. Every summer in Egypt, the Nile flooded. Beautiful, necessary, life-giving floods that the entire civilization depended on. But when those floodwaters pulled back, they left behind millions of warm, shallow pools sitting in the sun. Those pools became mosquito breeding grounds on a scale that is hard to even picture. And inside those mosquitoes, malaria, the parasite that invades red blood cells and destroys organs from within. Rich, poor, slave, God King, the mosquitoes did not check your tax bracket before they bit you. His children, raised in palaces, fed the finest food Egypt could produce, protected by the most powerful army on earth, were one single bite away from a fever that could kill them in days.
He built pyramids to cheat death. He carved his name into stone so deep it would survive millennia. He declared himself immortal in official records and temple walls. He could not keep his own children safe from a bug. You have window screens. You have insect repellent. If you travel somewhere malaria exists, you have a prescription medication that prevents it entirely. You have air conditioning that keeps your home sealed from insects all summer long. Your children sleep safely tonight. Ramesses could not say the same. Move forward 1,200 years. Rome, around 115 AD. Marcus Licinius Crassus, the wealthiest private citizen in the history of the Roman Republic, worth somewhere between $170 and $200 billion in today's money. He owned silver mines. He owned enormous real estate holdings across Rome. He famously operated the city's first private fire brigade, which would arrive at your burning building, wait while you panicked, and negotiate the sale price of your property before a single bucket of water got thrown. Ruthless, brilliant, incomprehensibly rich. He died from an infected wound. And I want you to sit with that for a second, because Rome was genuinely advanced for its time. The wealthy had the hypocaust system, heated floors with warm air circulating beneath marble tiles, while people in Britain were freezing in mud huts. They had aqueducts delivering running water directly into private homes. They had imported spices, sophisticated cuisine, the finest wine produced anywhere in the known world. But germ theory did not exist. The understanding that invisible, microscopic organisms cause infection and disease was not discovered until the 1800s. Roman physicians were educated, intelligent men doing their absolute best. They just had no framework for what was actually happening when a wound got infected. They cleaned wounds with vinegar sometimes, which helped marginally. But they had no antibiotics, no sterile surgical technique, no understanding of what they were actually fighting. A minor cut, the kind of thing you would spray with Neosporin and cover with a Band-Aid and forget about by Thursday. That cut on a Roman billionaire in a Roman palace attended by Rome's finest physicians could and did kill people within 2 weeks. You have gone to CVS, spent $11, and solved the exact problem that killed some of the wealthiest human beings who ever lived. And surgery? Surgery in Rome happened while you were completely conscious and physically restrained, because anesthesia did not exist in any form. Surgeons were judged not on precision or outcomes, but on speed, because faster meant less time in uncontrolled agony and less chance of dying from shock on the table. And if you survived the operation itself, you were placed in recovery with an open wound in an environment with zero sterile protocol and zero antibiotics. Most surgical deaths in Rome came not from the surgery, but from the infection that followed. You have had procedures done under general anesthesia. You felt nothing. You woke up and it was simply over. A Roman senator would have genuinely believed that was supernatural. England, 1272. King Edward I. Not a merchant, not a banker, the King of England,
He ruled millions of people across one of the most powerful kingdoms in medieval Europe. He commanded military campaigns that reshaped the political map of Britain. He lived in stone castles that represented the absolute peak of what human engineering could build at the time.
You have glasses. You have contact lenses. You have LASIK surgery that takes 15 minutes, costs a few $1,000s, and permanently corrects the problem. You can read a street sign from 100 yards. You can see individual leaves on trees. You can read a text message in the dark. Visual clarity that a medieval king literally could not purchase at any price. But the cold is what I keep returning to when I think about this era. Castles look magnificent in photographs and movies. 6 feet of solid stone in every direction, built to stop armies, built to last centuries. And stone, especially in the English climate, absorbs cold and holds it the way a battery holds a charge. The fireplaces in medieval castles were enormous, big enough to stand inside, burning constantly. They heated a radius of roughly 10 feet. Beyond that, the warmth simply vanished into the stone.
Edward I, King of England, woke up every single winter morning in his own bedroom, in his own castle, and could see his own breath. Every morning. You woke up this morning and your home was 68 degrees because a system you have never once thought about maintained that temperature automatically while you slept. You have never in your life woken up inside your own home and been able to see your breath. Not once. Edward I would have traded significant military territory for a working thermostat. New York City, 1890. John D. Rockefeller. This is the American standard for wealth. At his peak, Rockefeller controlled approximately 90% of all oil refining in the United States. His net worth, adjusted for today, sits between $400 and $420 billion. That number makes current billionaires look like they are still building towards something. He is, by most serious historical estimates, the wealthiest private individual in American history. He spent every summer sweating through his wool suits in 95-degree heat, with absolutely no relief available. Air conditioning was invented in 1902. Residential air conditioning did not become meaningfully accessible until the 1950s. Rockefeller, in his prime, in his enormous Cleveland mansion, with his full staff of servants, was just hot. In summer, everyone was hot, and what wealth bought you was slightly thinner fabric and a house position to catch a cross breeze. That was the ceiling. But here is the one that genuinely gets under my skin. Rockefeller suffered from severe chronic digestive problems throughout much of his adult life. He had access to the most accomplished physicians in the United States. Educated men, serious men, men doing their absolute best with everything available to them. And they were guessing. Informed, intelligent guessing, but guessing. Because modern nutritional science did not exist. The understanding of vitamins was not established until the early 1900s. The concept of the gut microbiome, inflammation pathways, metabolic function at a cellular level, the relationship between specific nutrients and specific health outcomes, none of it existed. His doctors could observe symptoms and propose treatments based on those observations. They could not look at his actual physiology and tell him what was happening or why. You can order a comprehensive blood panel today, get results within 48 hours, and receive a specific breakdown of exactly what your body is doing metabolically, what it is lacking, and precisely what to do about it. You can wear a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks and understand your body's response to food in ways that no physician in 1890 could have generated for any patient at any price. You can track your sleep architecture, your heart rate variability, your blood oxygen levels, your stress hormone patterns, all from a device on your wrist. Rockefeller had $400 billion, and his doctors were making educated guesses.
You have a $200 smartwatch and more real physiological data about your own body than his entire medical team combined could have produced. And cancer. I have to say this plainly. In 1890, most cancer diagnoses were death sentences. Not because cancer was more aggressive, because there was nothing to fight it with. No chemotherapy, no radiation therapy, no immunotherapy, no targeted biological treatments, no early detection screening. Surgery was sometimes attempted, but rarely successful against solid tumors. If cancer found you, you managed symptoms until you couldn't anymore. Thyroid cancer today? Highly treatable. Certain leukemias? Remission rates above 90% with modern protocols. Early-stage breast cancer, prostate cancer, colorectal cancer caught through standard screening? Survivable, often curable.
All of that was unavailable at any price in 1890. All of it is covered under standard health insurance today. And one more. This one surprises people every single time. Seattle, 1995. Bill Gates. At this point, Gates was the richest man on the planet. Microsoft had just launched Windows 95, personal computers were mainstream, the information age was fully underway. This feels like the modern world. Gates, worth approximately $13 billion in 1995, got lost driving to meetings.
No GPS, no Google Maps, no real-time navigation of any kind. You drove with a paper map, or you called ahead on a landline and wrote down turn-by-turn directions on a notepad, or you simply knew the city already. Getting lost was an accepted, normal, routine part of going somewhere unfamiliar. Traffic was completely invisible until you were already sitting in it, with no information about how long it would last, or what the alternate routes looked like. You open Google Maps right now, and it shows you live traffic conditions, the optimal route, your arrival time accurate to the minute, and it adjusts automatically in real time if anything changes. That technology did not exist for any person at any price in 1995. Gates was printing MapQuest directions. His phone was a large, heavy device that made voice calls and sent text messages that required navigating a numeric keypad to type a single sentence. No applications, no camera, no internet access, no ability to search for anything. The entire accumulated knowledge of human civilization was not available from his pocket. If you needed information, you went to a library, or you owned the relevant books, or you personally knew someone who knew. You have instant access to every answer to every question you have ever had, from your phone, in seconds. Gates, at the height of his power in 1995, would have found that completely unbelievable. Same-day delivery did not exist. Next-day delivery barely existed. If you needed something, you drove to a physical store and hoped they stocked it. If they did not, you called other stores or you ordered through a catalog and waited 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. Waiting. Weeks. For something you had already decided you wanted and paid for. You expect delivery by tomorrow. And on the days it arrives a day late, you notice. You are mildly inconvenienced. Bill Gates in 1995 could not do what you consider a basic minimum expectation of online shopping. Here's the mistake I made for a long time, and I think most people make the same one without realizing it. I spent years measuring my life horizontally, against people around me right now, against whoever seemed to be further ahead at this particular moment, and that comparison always made me feel behind, always made me feel like I was working towards something I hadn't reached yet, and like what I currently had didn't really count. And then one afternoon, I was sitting in my car, genuinely frustrated about something I can't even remember anymore, and I was using GPS to find a parking garage. Routine, automatic, didn't think about it for a second, and the thought just landed. Bill Gates got lost driving to meetings in 1995.
I am annoyed about parking. That was the moment something actually shifted for me. Not in a way that made me stop wanting more or stop working toward things, but in a way that changed the baseline, changed what I was comparing against. The human brain is extraordinarily good at relative comparison and genuinely terrible at absolute context. We are wired to compare sideways to whoever is nearby, whoever is visible, whoever seems to have slightly more than us right now. We are not wired to compare vertically against the full sweep of human history, against every person who ever lived before us.
But vertical is the honest comparison. I want to say something clearly before we finish. This is not about being satisfied. This is not about lowering your standards or talking yourself out of ambition. Drive is legitimate. Wanting more is legitimate. Building towards something bigger is how progress happens. But there is a specific and unnecessary form of suffering that comes from genuinely not seeing what you were already standing on. And that suffering is optional. That is the part worth examining. Ramesses II poured the resources of an entire civilization into monuments designed to make his name last forever. He was trying to solve the one problem his wealth could not touch: the terror of disappearing, of being forgotten, of death being real and final.
He built pyramids to live forever. You have medicine, surgical capability, early detection screening, and nutritional science that have extended average human lifespan by decades compared to any previous point in history. You have the actual tools he was trying to build monuments to find. And most of us almost canceled our last doctor's appointment. History's richest men had gold. They had power. They had armies and monuments and thrones and empires. They did not have what you have right now. The only question worth sitting with tonight is whether you actually notice it.